Live from San Diego, California.
We go live to the newsroom with your host
for Nick's Nerd.
Well, how are y'all doing today? It is episode 255. I'm your host, Nick. This is Nick's Nerd News. You guys having fun? It is the end of March. April is in 2.5 days. That is wild, man. I can't believe it's April already. That means we're that much closer to summer. We're that much closer to Star Wars Jedi Survivor. Man, we're getting there, man. I don't know why I'm saying man, but no, for real. As always, thank you guys for listening to the podcast. You know where to find us on Spotify, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, and the like. You know where to follow us on socials. Nick's Nerd News on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. Follow the Nick DeFalco on TikTok. That's my personal TikTok, but post a lot about the shows. I'm going to start doing some. I'm going to start showing off my collection, if you will, on the talk. My different things that I've amassed over the years, but just giving some hints there. But, again, welcome to Nick's Nerd News. This is the news of the nerddom, if you will. Why am I doing new things? We're 255 episodes in. We don't do new things. That is wild. We're 5 episodes away from our 5th year anniversary, folks. So that's a thing as well. But you know what? I'm having fun. I hope you guys are having fun. We got a good episode today. We're going to be talking about John Wick at the end of the episode, so make sure you guys stick around if you want to hear my spoiler-filled review of John Wick Chapter 4. I loved it, is just a quick spoiler there for the episode. Got some news pertaining to some big stuff going on in the TV world. A lot of things are interestingly gettingly revealed in regards to movies that are coming out. And then surprisingly, some interesting things in the gaming world. And of course, we have an update on the Microsoft Activision merger, because it's not a week in the gaming world in 2023 without some Activision Xbox news. So, before we waste any more time talking about nonsense, let's just get right to what you guys are all here for, and that's the nerd news. Okay, so let's talk about what's going on in the gaming world, shall we? Well, the first thing we should go off of. So, how about this? So we're talking about Elden Ring now, 2 weeks in a row, fresh off its first year anniversary. Well, From Software has announced that Elden Ring will be getting a ray tracing update on current gen consoles as well as PC. So if you guys are playing. If you guys are playing, make sure you guys check that out, so that way you can play it with ray tracing now. I don't know why it took so long on that one, but that is for you guys who play Elden Ring. Next up, let's talk about a game that actually happened to be leaked, and then now it got officially announced, but Lego 2K Drive, which is a new open world AAA racing game from 2K Games, and it is a new racing game that will obviously be set in a Lego world. You get to build your race car, you get to transition from boats to cars. I don't know if it was planes, but you can pretty much build what your heart desires with different Lego elements, Lego bricks, Lego pieces, things like that. So that is coming out later this year. Lego 2K Drive. It actually looks really fun. Surprise announced. I'm sure they realized there was a demand for this after they released that Lego expansion for Forza Horizon 4, which had a of course, a famous Lego DLC, similar in vein to how they do with like the Hot Wheels DLC. But this one, obviously, you got a Lego Speed Champions McLaren. And there's a Lego Speed Champions theme where you can get current cars in Lego form. Also, this has been making the rounds. I guess someone at Paramount Global, which is the company that runs Paramount, MTV, Nickelodeon, things like that, was on record talking about. So they own the rights to Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and someone dropped that they were making a AAA game in the vein of God of War Ragnarok, but for Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles: The Last Ronin. So The Last Ronin is a new story that recently came out that was actually written by the original creators of the TMNT for the first time in like 30 years of them working together. It tells the story of essentially a post-apocalyptic world with the Ninja Turtles. I don't know why I say TMNT when I should say Ninja Turtles, but essentially there's only one turtle left, and that is The Last Ronin. I'm not going to spoil it because you guys should really read that graphic novel. It's actually really, really fucking good. It's one of the best graphic novels over the last few years, but it's actually perfect for a AAA adaptation, especially if they're going to be focusing on God of War, right? Because that's the type of character that whenever you hear Last Ronin, right, you think a lone warrior, a lone samurai type, obviously with the Ronin, with someone who is experienced, knows their way around a weapon, right? And that's kind of the vibe that would actually fit perfectly for that, fighting the Foot Clan and things like that. And this last turtle actually has the weapons of all his brothers. So you wouldn't know who it is until you read the story. But if that game is real and it gets a AAA studio behind it, I think it would probably sell very well and do very well if the right developer is behind it. So I'm looking forward to that game. We finally got a release date for Lord of the Rings Gollum. That game's been delayed and delayed and delayed. Well, it's finally coming, and it drops this May. Watch it get delayed again. Sega has announced Sonic Origins Plus, which is a add-on if you already have Sonic Origins, or you can get Sonic Origins Plus as a whole game as well. What this does is now it adds the 12 Game Gear games, all the 12 Sonic Game Gear games. Game Gear was, of course, Sega's handheld to compete with the Game Boy, as well as new playable characters in different Sonic games. Like I saw Tails was being added as a playable character in Sega, in Sonic CD. So that will be available soon and retails for like $7, or you can get Sonic Origins Plus as a whole with the original release plus those for $30. I think I saw that. Like I stated at the top of the hour, we have news in regards to the Xbox Activision merger. Well, in a new release via the UK's CMA, Competitions and Markets Authority, it is now less concerned about the deal going through. They released a statement saying that one of its key provisional concerns, that it would harm competition if Microsoft purchased Activision, they have had that addressed. So after seeing feedback from Microsoft, Sony, all involved parties, I think I told you guys a while back that 6 different major people that were opposed to it had actually been swayed back, or 6 different studios actually offered their support. And this is the statement. It says, quote, "The CMA's updated provisional findings show an improved understanding of the console gaming market and demonstrate a commitment to supporting players and competition. Sony's campaign to protect its dominance by blocking our competition." Oh no, that's Activision Blizzard's statement. Still not done. The CMA hasn't fully issued their final verdict. They're expecting it by the end of the month. Let me see. I don't know why that wasn't. Okay, so here is an official statement from the... Oh, that's long. But anyway, This is from the gov.uk. So, in February, the Competitions and Markets Authority published provisional findings setting out that the deal raises competition concerns in relation to both console gaming and cloud gaming services in the UK. The publication of provisional findings initiated a period of consultation in which the CMA invited responses to those findings from interested parties and continued to gather information. The CMA has received a significant amount of new evidence in response to its original provision findings. Having considered this new evidence carefully, together with the wide range of information gathered before those provisional findings were issued, the CMA Inquiry Group has updated its provisional findings and reached the provisional conclusion that, overall, the transaction will not result in a substantial lessening of competition in relation to console gaming in the UK. The most significant new evidence provided to the CMA relates to Microsoft's financial incentives to make Activision games, including Call of Duty, exclusive to its own consoles. While the CMA's original analysis indicated that this strategy would be profitable under most scenarios, new data, which provides better insight into the actual purchasing behavior of COD gamers, indicates that this strategy would be significantly loss-making under any plausible scenario. On this basis, the updated analysis now shows that it would not be commercially beneficial to Microsoft to make COD exclusive to Xbox following the deal, but that Microsoft will instead still have the incentive to continue to make the game available on PlayStation, unquote. So they go into more, but essentially what they're admitting is that Microsoft would lose money if they made it exclusive. And I think we all know that. I think a lot of people know that, but it seems like Sony is pushing a narrative that it's not going to happen. Obviously, they keep signing deals with more and more people. And in a sick twist of fate, it's funny, but Japan's Competition Regulatory Board has approved the Microsoft Activision merger in Japan. Obviously, Microsoft and Xbox don't have a large, I don't know why I said small, don't have a large footing in Japan. They're a very minuscule part of the market, the gaming market there. But the Japan Fair Trade Commission has approved it. And quote, the Japan Fair Trade Commission reviewed the transaction and reached the conclusion that the transaction is unlikely to result in substantially restraining competition in any particular fields of trade. Unquote. They went on to say the merger, quote, is safe harbor criteria for vertical business integration, and accordingly, the JFTC has notified the parties that the JFTC will not issue a cease and desist order, unquote. So, that is just out of control. That Sony didn't even put up a fight. First off, this proves that Sony's all bullshit because they didn't even put up a fight in their home country. They didn't. And they look worse and worse by the day. And while we're talking about Japan and the Activision Xbox merger, I want to talk about what's going on with U.S. Congress in terms of Japan and Sony and Xbox. 11 members of the U.S. Congress on both sides of the party have signed letters relating to, quote, anti-competitive tactics, unquote. There are two different letters, like I said, being signed by both parties. This is per Axios. And they were addressed to Ambassador Catherine Tai and Secretary of Commerce Gina Raimondo. It says, quote, today we write to you to bring your attention the imbalanced Japanese video game market, which we are concerned may be a result of discriminatory trade practice that could violate the spirit of the U.S.-Japan Digital Trade Agreement, unquote. They went on to say, quote, our understanding is that the Japanese government tolerates a range of exclusionary conduct by the domestic companies that may violate Japan's antitrust laws, and that this inaction by the Japanese government harms the ability of U.S. companies to compete in the country, unquote. They then followed it up with, it all has to do with Sony and Japan. Microsoft has about a 2% market share in Japan in regards to Xbox sales. They've only really there was only a few months ago they outsold PlayStation for the first time ever, I think. But it's funny because one of these is being brought up by one of the congresswomen from Washington who obviously represent Microsoft. Um, do I think it's going to do anything? No. Do I think that it has merit? No. I think it's funny that they're doing it. Obviously Japanese gamers do not find an appeal in a lot of American games or in Xbox in general, and I get that, right? Like Xbox has a bigger footing here in the U.S. Than it does around the world. PlayStation obviously dominates Japan; that's where it's from. Nintendo's another story, though, right? So I just think it's funny that, and I'm like, where are these senators then on the Activision deal? Huh? Were you there? But it's all fugazi. It's all for fucking show, man. They want to distract people with smoke and mirrors from other shit. We'll stay on the Xbox train here for just a little bit. Microsoft has put an end to their $1 Xbox Game Pass Ultimate trial deal that they've been running for several years now. So essentially what you could do, and this was in a statement to The Verge, Microsoft said, quote, "We have stopped our previous introductory offer for Game Pass Ultimate and PC Game Pass and are evaluating different marketing promotions for new members in the future," unquote. So what the $1 deal was essentially if you were new to Game Pass, you could sign up for your first month for free for $1. It's normally $15 or whatever it is now. But a lot of people figure out like a way to game the system where they could stack it for $1. I don't know how that worked, but obviously a lot of people were only paying $1 for Game Pass and it was still successful. I pay the monthly rate, which is like I said, it's about $15. They don't have a yearly option right now, which is kind of weird. Obviously, they got a lot of people gave them heat a couple months back when they were going to try and jack up the prices. They don't, and they have like 3-month deals. That's what I was doing for a while. But obviously, new people can't get Game Pass for $1, which I understand from a business standpoint. You can't do that forever. Surprisingly, there's not a big, there isn't a big uproar over this. So, like most people, oh fuck that, but like surprisingly, people are like, yeah, obviously it makes sense, dude. But yeah, you can't get it for $1 anymore. We've now learned that Ubisoft, Sega, and more have all pulled out of E3, which is funny because Ubisoft literally just confirmed they were going to E3 a couple weeks ago. But this puts the trade show in doubt. The future of E3 is clearly like not good. It's bleak. It's bleak as fuck, actually. Is E3 what it used to be? Not at all. Should it continue? Probably not. It will probably be replaced with something in the future. I mean, all the publishers and stuff have been doing like kind of their own thing as of late, which I kind of prefer. They don't have to be beholden to E3. It sucks for fans, though, since they just kind of started letting fans go to it again. And it's kind of been like dead because of COVID. But I hope that this could create something new in its place, since E3, like I said, had started to become a bit of a joke. But at this point, I don't know who's left to be at E3 because none of the big three will be there, and then the next tier of publishers won't be there either. So, like, EA hasn't been there in forever. So, we'll see what goes on with E3 moving forward. Valve has announced that Steam will be ending support for Windows 7 and 8 next year. So if you're on Windows 7 or 8, which I don't know how many people are, just know that your Steam won't work, next year. So that brings us to the PS Plus games for next month. Unfortunately, we have not learned what April's Xbox games with gold will be, but we can at least get an idea of the other half. So on PlayStation, if you have PS Plus, the games available to you will be Meet Your Maker, Sackboy: A Big Adventure, and Tales of Iron. So be on the lookout for those starting next month. Before we get to our biggest story of the day, I do want to talk about Horizon Forbidden West, the sequel to, of course, Horizon Zero Dawn. Its DLC comes out in May, and Guerrilla Games has given some insight as to why The Burning Shores will be a PS5 exclusive. You will not be able to get this DLC if you are playing Horizon Forbidden West on the PlayStation 4. Nara Lee, who is a senior community manager, wrote on the PlayStation blog that because of the cloud system, that the cloudscape is set up in a certain way, it will only work on the PS5. Yes, it's because of clouds. Principal FX artist Andrew Schneider and tech programmer Nathan Voss went on to say more. This is what you can find on the PlayStation blog. Quote, "The cloud systems that we developed for Horizon Zero Dawn and Horizon Forbidden West were fast because they didn't store clouds as 3D objects, but rather instructions on creating 3D clouds from limited 2D information. The PlayStation 5 can handle larger datasets, so after Forbidden West wrapped, we set to work with a voxel cloud renderer prototype that could live up to our standards for quality and actually allow the player to fly through highly detailed cloud formations." Unquote. So yes, the Horizon Forbidden West DLC, Burning Shores, is PS5 exclusive because of the clouds. This is the stupidest shit I've ever fucking heard. The clouds. Oh, God. But anyway, let's talk about gaming's biggest story, and it's actually about multiverse. So in a shocking twist of fate, Warner Brothers Games and Player First Games have announced that Multiverses will be shutting down in June for it to fully release next year. And if you're wondering, wait a minute, this game has had like 2 seasons. What do you mean it's shutting down for full release? That's right. Apparently, everyone has been playing Multiverses in a free-to-play beta. While the game will be free to play when it launches next year still, it's been an open beta this entire time. Player First Games said, quote, "Throughout our open beta, we've been working hard to build the best gameplay experience, and we appreciate all the inspiration you've given us. Our open beta has been an important learning opportunity for us and a stepping stone to the next phase of Multiverses," unquote. Which, again, I had no idea that it was in an open beta. We actually learned recently that its PC player base had virtually vanished. 99% of them have just... There was a 99% drop in activity. Yeah. The other issue with this essentially closing is people have spent money on the game, right? For in-game currency, the seasons and things like that. And you can't get a refund, even though the game will pretty much be unplayable until it relaunches. So you have a couple months to play it still, and then after June it will shut down until early 2024. And Warner Brothers Games has announced they will not be issuing refunds. So anything you bought, you can't get a refund for. It will carry over, but I just... Why release the game and then shut it down for a year? It's never coming back. I don't care what anyone says. It's not ever coming back. It was a great thing that did okay, but they say they're going to bring more characters and more seasons and things like that and cosmetics, but let's be honest, it will never do what it did. Just like the Nickelodeon Smash clone, it came and went, but you know what's still standing? Super Smash Brothers. Like everything that has tried to dethrone it has come and gone by the wayside, and they fail every time. But that is it for gaming. Let's head on over to the TV world, shall we? So what's going on in TV land? Shall we talk about that? Well, we have finally learned the name of the new Pokemon anime. That's obviously not starring Ash Ketchum after nearly 25 years. But Pokemon Horizons will be the new show. It is going to be set in Kanto, surprisingly, even though it will feature a lot of Paldean Pokemon and Captain Pikachu and a new host of characters. That is set to premiere in Japan later this year, and of course a dubbed US version at some point after that. PETA has called on Amazon Studios and the rest of Hollywood to stop using live animals in production after a horse died on the set of The Rings of Power. From what I can see, the horse did not die from like negligence or anything like that. Horses are very fragile for some reason. Obviously, the show, I don't even remember what it was called, but it was on HBO. It was all about horse racing. Like, that show got canned because like horses were dying left and right. But everyone knows that PETA is kind of a joke, right? So, first off, if they started making movies without real horses, like for a lot of things, it would be super noticeable and just it wouldn't look good at all. PETA, just stop. Please go focus on like actual things that can help animals, and people riding horses in a movie is not one of them. Cool. Vincent D'Onofrio has been talking in interviews saying that Daredevil Born Again is essentially getting a second season before Disney has actually announced it. How true this is, I'm not entirely sure. But he also said that it will be violent, and we don't need to worry about that, which is good, because that's what made Daredevil so good on Netflix. But if it does get a season 2, I'll be very happy. We've also got new info on Muppets Mayhem, the new Muppets spin-off show coming to Disney Plus about the Electric Mayhem band. That's the band that Animal is in. We only got images, though. Nothing else. Amy Jo Johnson, the original Pink Ranger, Kimberly, has spoken out against rumors that were swirling about why she did not appear in the upcoming Mighty Morphin Power Rangers Once and Always, which is like the 30th anniversary special. And she was quoted as saying, quote, "None of your beeswax," unquote. She said this on Twitter, quote, "Please stop saying I didn't do reunion because of money. Simply not true. Maybe I just didn't want to wear spandex in my 50s or couldn't go to New Zealand for a month, or none of your beeswax," unquote. Obviously, it's, in the record that she's not in it. She's not in the trailer or anything like that. People said it was over money, and now she's finally saying it wasn't. She even said in January, quote, "For the record, I never said no. I just didn't say yes to what was offered. But other fun stuff is in store. Looking forward to watching my friends kick ass," unquote. Which, she's not the only person that won't be in the special. We also know that Tommy Oliver's actor, Jason David Frank, will not be in it either, as he declined to appear in it before his passing. So that is what's happening. That premieres on April 19th. Mighty Morphin Power Rangers Once and Always, the 30th anniversary special, airing on Netflix. A producer and writer on Curb Your Enthusiasm tweeted out that season 12 would actually be its last, but then deleted the tweet not long after. So it has led to speculation that Curb Your Enthusiasm will be ending with season 12. Obviously, Larry David has not said anything in regards to the show, is he's kind of the driving force behind it. And of course, HBO kind of gives him a blank check with it and kind of just says, make it whenever you want. Obviously, a lot of things at HBO are changing, but I'm sure that Curb Your Enthusiasm tends to be one of its more profitable and most watched shows. So I don't see why they would want to kill a golden goose unless Larry wants to walk away. And until I hear it come out of Larry's mouth, I don't believe it. Speaking of HBO, House of the Dragon Season 2 has been announced that it will have only 8 episodes compared to the first season's 10. And apparently it's due to the fact that the story they were writing didn't need 10 episodes. What that means, I don't have a clue. But hopefully it doesn't affect the Ultimate Force 4 or 5 season plan. Ike Perlmutter of Marvel Entertainment, the man behind Marvel's renaissance, essentially, before Kevin Feige, has been laid off in Disney's major layoffs and restructuring. So Disney announced that they would be laying off 7,000 employees recently. This is all in an effort to cut back on $5.5 billion in costs. So the layoffs will begin this week. And it is, quote, a strategic realignment for the company, more effective, coordinated, and streamlined approach to our business, unquote. Iger, I guess, released a statement saying, quote, this week we begin notifying employees whose positions are impacted by the company's workforce reductions. Leaders will be communicating the news directly to the first group of impacted employees over the next 4 days. A second larger round of notifications will happen in April with several thousand more staff reductions, and we expect to commence the final round of notifications before the beginning of the summer to reach our 7,000 job target. Unquote. That is immense. That's getting up there with tech company levels. I don't know if it's because of the recession fears that are kind of true, kind of not. The banking industry shit that's now happening. I am just really thrown off by all this shit because things are looking up and then they're not and then they are and then it's very confusing. But then you have all these companies laying off thousands of people, yet everything's fine. I'm very confused. But Ike Perlmutter, like I said, who is chairman and CEO of Marvel Entertainment, is part of this group. Via the New York Times, Marvel Entertainment will now, which focus mostly on consumer products, and they had handled the TV arm of Marvel before it decided to be part of the MCU and on Disney Plus, will be folded back into other parts of the company. Ike Perlmutter has been at Marvel Entertainment since the 90s. He essentially helped get that $4 billion sale of Marvel to Disney in 2009. But, of course, he actually wanted to fire Kevin Feige at one point. Perlmutter bought the rights to, like, Marvel TV shows and stuff back in the day. He's actually instrumental in the reason he got money to be able to buy Marvel stuff was he owned the toy rights to Batman 1989. Like, started with DC and then was able to buy Marvel stuff. So Ike Perlmutter is really the reason Marvel exists what it is today. It's unfortunate, though, that he was caught in the layoffs, but you don't clash with their golden goose, Kevin Feige, obviously, and his role has probably diminished over the last 10 plus years. So it's understandable. Maybe he'll just retire as well. Let me see. Paramount has announced new information on Star Trek's future. Strange New Worlds, which we haven't heard a lot about since its first season, will get a second season starting June 15th, and it has been renewed for a season 3. So it will get 3 seasons at least on Paramount+. Star Trek First Contact Day is next week, which is like their May the 4th. I'm sure we'll get a trailer then. Lower Decks will be getting season 4 this summer, and has been renewed for a season 5, making it the second Star Trek show to get a 5th season since Star Trek Discovery. And then Star Trek Prodigy will return for a second season this winter. No word yet on a 3rd season. Now it's going to be almost a year between seasons. And that's a kids animated show. That's it on renewal front. So let's talk about TV reviews. And I'm going to talk first about Star Trek Picard, since we're in the Star Trek realm. Of course, it's on its 3rd and final season. It's been a great big reunion of the Next Generation cast. And this past episode, The Bounty, double entendre there, double meaning, was the most Easter egg-filled episode of Star Trek I've ever seen. And it involves the crew being in 2 different places, still full of Easter eggs. On one hand, you have Riker, Worf, and Raffi going to Daystrom Station, which is filled with Easter eggs of Trek's past. And then you have Jean-Luc and Geordi, finally, Shaw and Seven of Nine, and Jack and Beverly at the Athlon Prime Starfleet Museum, which, again, is filled with Star Trek's past. And it's literally amazing because, first off, Kirk's body and Data and what we thought was going to be the real Moriarty, but is actually just a tease for Moriarty, is at the Daystrom Station. The Genesis device, things like that, are all there. Meanwhile, at the Fleet Museum, we get, for the first time in, 30 years, we see the Enterprise A, the NCC 1701-A, the USS Enterprise A, the refit Enterprise that was the star of Star Trek 3 through 6, The Undiscovered Country, in glorious HD. Oh, it was so pretty looking. We also get the USS New Jersey, which is a Constitution class. But what's weird is it looks like the original series Constitution and not how the Constitution looks in Strange New Worlds. So there's some continuity issues there. We get the NX-01 refit, which was never official canon. It's essentially a refit of the Enterprise from Star Trek Enterprise, the show that was on in the early 2000s with Captain Archer. This was the refit that had been shown off in concept art if it had gotten a potential 5th season and like the Ships of the Line catalog. So that's finally in canon. We get the Defiant with the DS9 theme song playing. We get the Voyager and 7 of 9 reminiscing about the Voyager and the Voyager theme song. We also get Romulan Bird of Prey, a Katinga class battle cruiser, which actually happens to be the what's the name? It is the Kronos 1, which is the ship that the Chancellor Gorkon used in Undiscovered Country. Why there would be a Klingon ship at the Starfleet Museum is beyond me, but I digress. But yes, it has the USS Voyager. It actually has the USS Excelsior. Like I said, the New Jersey, which is an original Constitution class. It has Picard's Stargazer. It has the NCC 1701A, the Kronos 1, the NX-01. It has also the HMS Bounty. And if you don't know what that is the Burrell Bird of Prey Klingon ship that Kirk and crew use in Star Trek 3 and Star Trek 4. And it gets a shout out, the thing with the whales. Star Trek 4 is one of my favorite Star Trek movies. So yes, the HMS Bounty is there, hence the title of the episode. It plays in. There's a Romulan Bird of Prey. The Defiant is there. There's a ship named after Annie Wershing, who sadly passed away recently. There are some other ships that are shown off at the that are shown off at the Daystrom Institute, and the picture that Dave Blass, who's like a ship designer for Paramount, I can't really read it, but let me see if I can find it on his Instagram, just so I can give you guys an idea of all the different ships that were at... yeah, I can't read it. It doesn't blow up properly. All the different ships that were at not just the Fleet Museum, but that were at Daystrom Station as well. Because I think it was shown off in Picard Season 2, but there's actually Excelsior 2 class, which is a updated version of the Excelsior class. Obviously, I'm going deep into Star Trek, but Bounty was a great episode of Star Trek Picard. New episode drops tomorrow, obviously, as we near the end. The Mandalorian dropped a new episode today as well, which was a different episode. Definitely plays into the idea that I've been thinking about how Bo-Katan would kind of modernize the Mandos. That's, of course, at the end of the episode. But the chunk of the episode actually features the Mandos fighting pirates on Navarro for Grief Karga, which was really great seeing that action both on the ground, in atmosphere. In-atmosphere fights with ships in Star Wars is always great. There's even like a Smee character, which was kind of funny. But one of my favorite things, first off, Tim Meadows is in the episode. They've been making great use of like comedians in a somewhat serious role in The Mandalorian lately, and I really dig it. But we get an appearance by Zeb Orrelios himself from Star Wars Rebels in live action, voiced by Steve Bloom. His race looks very weird in live action. I will say that they don't really have a nose; it's just kind of an opening. But it was fun to see Zeb back after Rebels had ended so long ago, and pretty much hopefully tying it to Ahsoka. But it looks like he's a pilot for the New Republic, and it's been almost a decade since we last saw him in canon, technically. So it's good to see him back, and I was happy they got Steve Bloom back to voice him as well. And then The Bad Batch had its 2-part season finale this week. Holy fuck, man. The Bad Batch has been outdoing The Mandalorian the last few weeks, and I'm not the only one to say that. They've been upping the tension and everything going on with the Empire. And if season 3 of The Bad Batch isn't announced at Star Wars Celebration next week, I'm not going to be happy, because they end it on a cliffhanger and it needs to be added. Yeah, there's literally no reason they wouldn't let Dave Filoni. Speaking of Dave Filoni, he actually had a appearance in The Mandalorian as well. But honestly, I don't think they'd let Dave Filoni, or Dave Filoni wouldn't end it on a cliffhanger like that if he wasn't getting a third season, right? Omega's captured. We lose a member of the Bad Batch, but hopefully we gain a new one. And we're learning. First off, we get a shout out to Director Krennic, or Commander Krennic at the time, and we get to see more clone commandos, which is always fun. But the Bad Batch better get a fucking season 3. That's all I fucking know. But that's it for TV. Let's head on to movies, shall we? Oh, what's going on in Hollywood? Huh? Tommy Wiseau, The Room. I did not hit her. I did not. Oh, hi, Mark. Yes, Tommy Wiseau has a new movie, Big Shark. It looks absolutely terrible. Robert Downey Jr. is apparently in talks to star in a remake of Albert Hitchcock's Vertigo. And I love Albert Hitchcock. I love Robert Downey Jr. I don't love Albert Hitchcock remakes. And I don't think anyone does, because every Albert Hitchcock remake that has been made over the last 20-so years has utterly failed, with the exception of Bates Motel. because it's not really a remake, it's a prequel. The Psycho remake, which was pretty much shot for shot, bombed both critically and financially. The Rear Window remake, I don't even think people know it exists. Christopher Reeve was in it, obviously bound to a wheelchair at the time after his accident, plays that character. I know there's other Hitchcock remakes out there, but they're not well received. I don't, and Vertigo is one of his best. I don't see why. Honestly, though, with Robert Downey Jr., it will probably be done properly and well, but the writing's on the wall there, folks. We don't need to remake Hitchcock. Zack Snyder has announced a 3-day charity event, which will commence with airing of his 3 Snyderverse films. That's kind of what he was teasing with his Darkseid announcement. Between April 28th and April 30th, it's the Full Circle event to be held in support of American Foundation for Suicide Prevention. He will host the weekend with screenings of his 3 main films. It will take place at the Manson Auditorium at Art Center College of Design in Pasadena on the April 28th and 29th. On the April 30th, the screenings will take place at Universal AMC at City Walk Hollywood. Tickets are on sale now. Each day 1 and day 2 cost $150. Day 3 costs $175. Obviously, you get to meet Zack Snyder, screening, things like that. It will air Man of Steel, Batman vs. Superman, and Justice League. And let me see. I wonder if that, that's just, those will be his films that he's showing off. Obviously, the money will go to a good cause because Zack Snyder, of course, lost his daughter to suicide, which led to him stepping away from finishing Justice League. We'll stick with the DC EU and DCU right now. Zachary Levi, of course, is going on like a tour and trying to get people to watch Shazam 2, which people should because it was good. And was talking about the first movie, and I guess they really tried hard to get Henry Cavill. In an Instagram video, he said, quote, "We have been doing everything we can to fight for you, the fans. Yes, even you fans that don't like me. All of you fans who love Henry Cavill, we tried desperately to get Henry Cavill in the first movie. He wasn't a headless Superman because we wanted him to be a headless Superman. We were thwarted. All of these hardworking people were thwarted. We were not allowed to have that happen." Unquote. So it looks like they really wanted to get Henry Cavill to show up in that post-credit scene in the first movie. We've learned, a lot about the movie. Also saying stuff about being thwarted about the Shazam Black Adam crossover that was supposed to happen. So in Shazam 2, Shazam gets recruited by Harcourt and Economos into the Justice Society, but it was supposed to be Hawkman and Cyclone that come and actually recruit him. Obviously, The Rock put a stop to that, but The Rock, man, dude, just admit you failed. Like, this is all from the rap as well. But drama over there, man, drama. And then Jason Momoa has come out and said that has confidence. He says, quote, "I absolutely think Aquaman will be involved in the DCU. It's on, bro. There's no one bigger than Aquaman. But also, I hope people are excited to see the new one. It's fun. I really enjoyed doing comedy. There's some really funny stuff with Patrick Wilson. I really adore him. We had a great time working together. It's like we're brothers. There's a lot of cool stuff happening in this one," unquote. So it looks like the talk that Jason Momoa had with James Gunn was good, because as much as he wants to play Lobo, it looks like Aquaman's sticking around in the new universe shakeup, which I'm totally okay with. Then we also got to see Lady Gaga as Harley. I don't really dig the outfit, but I get it. And there was also posters for Harvey Dent. So it looks like Harvey Dent will be in Joker Part 2, Folie à Deux, or whatever they're calling it. John Wick has won the weekend box office in the series' biggest debut with $73.5 million domestically and $137.5 million globally, which has led Lionsgate to want more John Wick. No surprise there. Obviously, they want to keep that cash cow going. There's several spin-offs already in development, including The Ballerina, starring Ana de Armas, and the Continental television show, which is coming to Peacock, which was set in the 70s. And then Donnie Yen has even expressed interest in making a spin-off based on his character Kane from John Wick Chapter 4, which, when I talk about my review, you'll understand why I would totally be on board with that. Brie Larson has finally come out and said to the world who her character is in Fast and the Furious 10 or Fast X, and apparently she's playing the daughter of Mr. Nobody, the character played by Kurt Russell in the previous films, but she is committed to Dom and his family. James Gunn has confirmed that Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 will be around two and a half hours, but he said, quote, "No seconds are wasted," unquote, whatever that means. But he also said that the movie that is going to be focused on Rocket. Rocket is the protagonist of Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, and it's really Rocket's trilogy. So I'm excited. That movie comes out next month. Or in 2 months, in May, excuse me. Liv Tyler has been announced as returning to the MCU for the first time since the Hulk. Was it the Hulk? Yeah, the Hulk. The one with Edward Norton. She will be returning as Bonnie Ross. No, not Bonnie Ross. Betsy Ross, excuse me. The daughter of Thunderbolt Thaddeus Ross. Obviously originally played by William Hurt, now being played by Harrison Ford. So she will appear in Captain America New World Order, starring Sam Wilson as Captain America. And then Thomas Hayden Church said he has had discussions with Marvel about the return of Sandman. He said, quote, "We had a whole story involving his daughter for No Way Home, and it just ended up cut," unquote. This is from Disinsider. He also went on to say, quote, "There was so much going on. Amy and Kevin, we all had a lot of conversations, and I would say that conversations have been had about the possibility of Sandman coming into a future iteration of it. The conversation has happened about him coming back and get a more fulfilling story," unquote. So, obviously, we don't know if this is the MCU or if it will be in Spider-Man, or will he play a new version, or will he play the Raimi version. But if this means we get a Spider-Man 4 with Tobey, finally, I'm on board, baby. Let me see. Questlove will be directing a live version of the Aristocats for Disney. Yes, the Aristocats will be the next movie to get the live-action computer animation hybrid. No surprise there. Everyone loves the Aristocats. And then before we move on to John Wick, so we're essentially reaching the end of the show today, Wes Anderson dropped a new trailer for his new movie Atomic City, and it's probably got the biggest ensemble cast he's ever had. And Tom Hanks and Bryan Cranston are joining Wes Anderson for the first time. I'm very excited to see Tom Hanks in a Wes Anderson film. And Scarlett Johansson's in the movie as well. It looks like it's set in the 1950s in a city that has an asteroid crater based around like science fiction campers and celebrating the asteroid stuff in the 1950s with 1950s sci-fi. I am all on board. I have never watched a Wes Anderson movie I didn't like, so obviously I'm going to be very excited for this. I love all of his films. But check that trailer out now. It's online. But that is it for the main show for episode 255. Thank you guys for listening. So if you want to stick around, I'm going to talk about spoilers for John Wick Chapter 4. Otherwise, I will catch you guys next week. So, little bit of a drum roll there. Let's give some time for people to log off if they don't want to hear spoilers, or that way they can come back. But let's talk about John Wick Chapter 4. It picks up essentially not long after John Wick Chapter 3 ended. It looks like there had been some time between the two. And John does not waste any time getting to work. The action in the film is on point, as always. Keanu kills it in the role. And we get to see more of the John Wick world. The best part, though, is what's his name? Bill Skarsgård plays a great villain in what are they calling him now? He's some guy for the high table. Where is it? Marquis Vincent de Gramont. He's a high member of the high table. He starts invoking all these different things, which causes the New York Continental to be blown up, essentially, which brings us Ian McShane's character, who's always been on the side of John, to kind of really ally himself with him, Winston Scott, in what might be Lance Reddick's final role as Charon. Unfortunately, he doesn't survive the whole movie. My boy Charon. And it sucks, man. But it gives motivation for John. It gives motivation for Winston. And it makes sense. Then Lawrence Fishburne's in it, but not a whole lot, which is fine. But he's great in the role. This is a better Matrix sequel than whatever that terrible Matrix movie was. Clancy Brown is in it as well, and he plays like a messenger for the high table. Great character. But the best introduction, though, is Donnie Yen as the character Kane, who happens to be an old friend of John Wick's, and they're pitted against each other in this movie. He seems to be like their number one assassin, like John Wick kind of was. So it's fun to see him because he begrudgingly takes it on because he doesn't really want to kill John. Another great addition, though, is we actually get to go to the Osaka Continental, which is actually run by Hiroyuki Sanada, who, that man is taking action movies by storm lately. We do get to see an epic fight between him and Donnie Yen in the film. And honestly, Donnie Yen elevates this movie to the next level because he's more martial arts than shooting. He's actually a great comedic relief in the film as well. There hasn't been a whole lot of funny in the John Wick films. They've been somewhat very serious. But Donnie Yen brings a lightness to the film that is much appreciated. His character, Kane, is amazing. He is a blind character in the movie. And he is able to take on a lot of people very easily and almost has like superhuman abilities in his abilities to dodge and things like that. His fight with Sonata is great, and I would love to see more of them fighting. Unfortunately, Sonata does not make it out, which leads to the post-credit scene, essentially, which teases a future for the movie. Let me see. Another great addition is the Mr. Nobody character, or the Tracker. He's a new bounty hunter that essentially finds John Wick very easily. And he has a dog that literally wrecks people. There's a great scene with him and John later in the film, and it's like a top-down. It's almost like Hotline Miami or some other games like that. That was fucking great to see on the big screen. The shooting and the fighting are beyond optimal. It's I can see why people were calling it the best action movie in years, because it kind of is. And the story makes sense for what's going on. But unfortunately, at the end, John bets all these things. And so, major spoilers, John Wick might be dead. Obviously the old adage, no body, no death, right? And the way it ends definitely leaves the door open for a potential John Wick 5. And while Keanu Reeves and Chad Stahelski have said they want to take a break, obviously the money it's making is going to be a big factor. Lionsgate actually wanting to make more is going to be a big factor. But while technically they hold a funeral for John Wick, I don't think he's really dead. There's literally a crossroads we've come to, right? There's one option where John truly is dead and we can leave it at that. Or there's one where he faked his death so he can go live in peace finally and not have to worry about the high table or assassins coming after him all the time. Honestly, I like to live in the world where he just faked his death and he's alive and fine and finally being happy. That is an option. But if they do leave it at the end here, I'm perfectly fine with that as well, because the 4 movies were great and told a great story. It was a little more over the top in this one than previous, but that's fine. This John Wick world is an interesting world as well, because guns and fights go around people and people just are oblivious to everything going on, which obviously wouldn't really be happening in reality. But every character in the 4th film is great. The story is great. Keanu never ceases to amaze me in his abilities with, what do we call it, gun fu now. I would gladly take a Donnie Yen spinoff. We know the ballerina spinoff is coming, and it does take place between John Wick 3 and 4, so Keanu is expected to appear in that film, so it makes sense. But if I were to rate John Wick, 100% 11 out of 10. Like, going beyond. John Wick Chapter 4, fucking great. You should definitely go see it in a theater. I loved it. But, again, it's a great story, great action. And if you like the other John Wicks, you'll love it. If you like action movies, please watch the other John Wicks if you haven't. John Wick Chapter 4, for me, personally, 11 out of 10. I loved it. Thank you guys for listening. Next week, hopefully, we'll have a Dungeons & Dragons review and whatever other else news comes out. But that's it, like I said, for Nick's Nerd News. Make sure you check us out on socials. Nick's Nerd News on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. The Nick DeFalco on TikTok. Check out the website. We're on Spotify, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, anywhere you can stream a podcast, iHeartRadio, things like that. So make sure you guys give a listen, like, share, subscribe, do all the fun stuff. I'm your host, Nick. This was episode 255, and I will catch you guys on the flip side.